Podcasting between the raindrops at the Detroit Shipping Company studio of Podcast Detroit, this is your Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays.
You're listening to episode number 290 of our little podcast, recorded on June 20th, 2019, and I'm Sven Gustafson. Let's get right into it right after this from our sponsor.
Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Repurpose. That's where you can get hired by Detroit's best startups and companies.
Repurpose connects top talent like you with purpose-driven companies based on values, experience, and culture fit. Join their talent community at repurpose.co. That's repurpose.co.
Ford today launched a new crowdsourcing initiative related to transportation. Sven went down to the factory, which is the automaker's new mobility headquarters in Corktown and part of its ongoing plans to develop an office campus in the neighborhood. Sven, what's this all about today?
Ford is launching what it calls the City One Michigan Central Station Challenge. So this is part of their community benefits agreement for redeveloping the Michigan Central Station, the giant train station.
That's a $740 million project.
Right, including everything that they're doing in the neighborhood. And, you know, the CBA, just for reminder, is like a requirement that the city tax on to any project that gets, you know, a certain threshold of tax incentive and other help from the state and city. So City One is an 8-month program, and the goal is to engage nearby residents, business owners, designers, and other creative types, community groups. They don't have to be like residents of Corktown or people who work in the neighborhood. Anybody can do this, but the goal is to identify existing transportation challenges and solicit innovative ideas for solutions that, you know, do things like expand access and safety. And the goal is to basically whittle them down to finalists and then winners that can be funded and launched as pilot programs. Here's how Aniela Kuzan explains it. She's the founder and global lead of the City One innovation team at Ford Mobility.
So Ford has really taken the position that as we expand into the mobility business, that we want to partner with cities and we want to partner with residents on our solutions so that we're not just looking at technology for technology's sake, but we're really introducing solutions that meet real people's needs and create more options. So today, and we've taken that approach, you know, as well in terms of how we've engaged the community over the last year around how we want to transform Michigan Central Station. So the intention and the goal of this challenge is really to say, how do we work with the city, with the state, with residents, small business owners, visitors in the development area to really understand where is transportation working, where is it not working, what would people be really excited to see here, and then to engage entrepreneurs to propose ideas that address those specific issues and bring them to life in pilots early next year.
Okay, so this is all really interesting. How's this going to work?
So it's kind of a two-phase process. Ford is going to spend the first 10 weeks in kind of like an exploratory listening phase. They have a website set up, we'll link to it in the show notes, where people can submit their ideas and their thoughts, sign up for what is planned to be a series of community working sessions to identify problems and challenges and stuff. And then phase 2 starts August 28th. That's when people can start submitting specific proposals that could be funded. And then in October, there'll be a committee that will select finalists. Now, the 12 finalists will get to split $78,000 in stipends. And then they'll be whittled down to up to 5 winners who will divvy up $250,000 in funding.
One of the things I'm glad about seeing with this project is so often people want ideas, but they're not willing to pay for them. And I'm glad to see, like, these are numbers that people could actually start to work with.
Yep.
You know, it's not like you're trying to hand out, you know, $500 or $1,000. I mean, not that those programs aren't valuable, but it costs money to make things happen and time costs money. But I got to ask then, like, where is all this money coming from?
Ford's splitting it with Planet M, which is the mobility arm of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, state of Michigan. Those are the two main partners in this challenge, along with the city of Detroit. The program's also getting some support from Microsoft, Dell Technologies, and AT&T.
So seems like pretty tech heavy right there.
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of pilot projects are we talking about?
So it could be anything from like reducing barriers to transportation, to increasing opportunities for biking and walking, pedestrian opportunities. They talk sort of broadly about efforts to get people to and from the Corktown neighborhood into other destinations around Detroit. And then, also things like delivery of daily services and things to residents, making that easier and more. So the City One Challenge is also it's part of a longer running. Ford launched this program about a year ago in 3 cities: Pittsburgh, Grand Rapids, and Miami-Dade County in Florida. And so, like, 2 examples that they cited that went on to actually become pilot programs. In Miami-Dade County, there is now a mobile app that is attempting to coordinate drop-offs and pickups at local schools, because as any parent knows, that is it's unsafe. People are in a rush to get in and out of there.
Oh, it's an
cluster.
Absolute mess. Anytime I've driven past any of that situation, you're caught worse than traffic in I-75. You're just stuck behind all these folks. And I can only imagine with these kids darting in and out and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it gets crazy. I actually know a child who was struck and run over outside of my kid's old school. But anyway, they were able to quantify also that in Miami, school pickups and drop-offs contributed 6% to rush hour traffic congestion in that area, which is really remarkable. And then also in Pittsburgh, they're doing a pilot to provide safer and more accessible options for people who work midnight shifts.
That could be a big thing around here because you got a lot of factories that are got different shifts and things going on.
Right. At times when peak bus routes and things aren't running,
because for the most part it's all kind of designed around that 9 to 5 schedule. The city of Detroit does make some accommodations with their 24-hour routes for different schedules, but in general the transit system is wrapped around that 9 to 5 schedule. And especially nowadays with people working, service workers. I also think about things in the suburbs. Remember back in the day when there was that whole thing about Royal Oak businesses trying to get more workers out to the suburbs, but they couldn't get people because they couldn't get out there because bus service didn't work after 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the places closed, and that's when they needed people. It's been really fascinating to me to see how as the economy's changed, the transit and other mobility stuff kind of has to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, you're seeing more and more of them around here. Ford is now really starting to test those self-driving cars. They are that is a regular presence now in Corktown and in the city. Is that what this is all about?
Well, I asked Kuzan about that specifically. Here's what she said.
So I think what we're really looking at is understanding what are the problems that need to be solved around transportation, and then where can not only self-driving cars, but the broader set of technology innovations serve those specific needs. We have seen self-driving car proposals in our 2018 cities, but we've also seen solutions that have nothing to do with a vehicle at all. And so the goal really is to take a broader look at what is going on locally, engage the community really in a conversation around what local needs are, and then reach across the broader portfolio of technologies, including self-driving cars, but much more than that, to see where we can have immediate impact.
So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. Jared, you and I were at the factory last night also it was kind of a happy hour celebration.
Shout out to Batch Brewery.
It was for their new information center that we talked about yesterday that they just opened on the corner there of Michigan and Rosa Parks, Michigan Avenue and Rosa Parks. So we were up they hosted a bunch of us muckety mucks up on the 3rd floor rooftop.
I don't think we're muckety mucks, Sven. I think we're pre-muckety muck. Or are we pod muckety muck?
We're post muckety mucks. So we were up on the rooftop. If you go to our Instagram page, you can see a lovely picture of us with the skyline in the background. Yeah. But it was really interesting to me, in all seriousness, to be up there on the corner of 2 pretty busy streets, almost kind of like a main intersection of Corktown, both because, you had this beautiful view into downtown and the skyline and everything, but it was just really neat to see sort of the flow of traffic. You've got Michigan Avenue, which is a very wide avenue. Even though they've taken away lanes to devote to protected bike lanes and then a lane of parallel parking, but there was you could see the rush hour traffic. There was a lot of traffic at rush hour, and then it tailed off, and it really was a very underutilized road. But you also saw there are bike lanes on both Rosa Parks and Michigan Avenue, and I saw a lot of people riding bikes down those bikes, both, in all directions and
For
everything.
sure. People were using them like crazy. I mean, we saw a few every few minutes.
Yeah. And people, riding scooters too, the electric
Oh,
scooters.
that was a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, you saw a lot of that. So it was really interesting to it was kind of like a neat perch to kind of observe the workings of like a city, but it was also like evident, and we talked about it, that, there's still a lot of emptiness in that neighborhood, and like spaces that need to be filled in.
Well, when you're speaking of open spaces, one of the things I think people forget is that Michigan Avenue was actually widened to accommodate cars.
Yep.
And right now, looking at it as it is today, there's still room, I think, on it where they never should have widened that road. Because when they widened it soon after the freeway was built, and now you just have this like complete mess and a bunch of awesome buildings were demolished. Another thing, parking kind of off to the side and not right next to the event. And I lived in North Corktown for quite a while, and so I'm kind of familiar with it. One of the things is that things actually hadn't changed that much. And you go down by the train station there is still, look, great neighborhood. I would live there again in a heartbeat. I love it. But it does not look like the shiny pictures that you see in Midtown.
Right.
You've still got houses with those, what is that material, that like fake brick? That
it's like a paneling that look like brick. But
you've still got houses with that material on it. You've got stuff, we went down one block, there were 4 different houses on one short block that were empty and tore up.
Right.
And this is right in the shadow of the train station.
That neighborhood still has challenges despite all of the investment and, revitalization that's been going on there.
Well, and what I worry about with this is that are the speculators coming in? I know there was a Chinese investor up in North Corktown. I know there's other folks, with speculators coming in, and will it just stay in place until it just leapfrogs into something that's completely not Detroit-y whatsoever?
Yeah. Well, clearly the neighborhood is changing. Ford's presence there and their money is going to only accelerate that. There's no question about that. We right across the street from the factory along Rosa Parks, there's a huge demolition site, a big active construction site right now. Things are changing, and it was funny as I was parking the car last night. I'm going down the street, and every car parked there was like Ford. It's like the official parked car of Corktown. But Ford clearly seems to be aware of its presence and sensitive to trying to fit into the neighborhood as opposed to kind of coming in and dictating everything. So, you talked about it yesterday that they're looking for a lot of things that frankly don't necessarily directly involve Ford, but they're looking to engage other partners. So, good on them for that.
2 quick pieces of news before we let you go. Dan Gilbert, the billionaire investor and Quicken Loans founder who suffered a stroke recently, has been released from the hospital. He's been moved from Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak to an unnamed inpatient facility for rehabilitation. Quicken Loans CEO Jay Farner said in a statement that Gilbert will go into an intensive rehabilitation program.
Secondly, and this news is going to totally bum out my son, who loves penguins. He has 3 stuffed animal penguins that he sleeps with every single night. The Polk Penguin Conservation Center at the Detroit Zoo will be closed starting September 9th through June of next year for repairs. According to the zoo, there was faulty waterproofing done by the construction contractor. The $31 million facility opened in April of 2016.
Man, this is a bummer, and it really, this place has won awards, and it's really a shame that it's only been about 3 years, and we're already having to have a multi-month closure.
That'll do it for today's show, friends.
Thanks for listening. If you love what we're doing, tell a friend. It's the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward.
I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.